I am going to show you how to integrate the webhook for the CryptoCheckout product. Okay, so I just did a video. If you haven't watched it, highly recommend it. And it basically goes over how to set up the project for accepting crypto payments, how to set the prices, how it all works and goes together, and then what it looks like when a customer sends a payment. And then finally, what I'm doing here in this video is an extension to that video, which shows you how to accept the payload of the webhook after somebody makes a payment. There's really two parts. You have to validate that the webhook came from us, right? And you then update your own database and authorize access for the user, okay? Based on the information that we sent you. So, the first part's obviously important because then anybody can then go ahead and make a request to your webhook with fake information and then give themselves access to your product. So you have to make sure that it's coming from us. And then the second way is to update the information. So this should be pretty easy. I have most of the code set up. First thing, I'll just explain what is a webhook. You can skip this part, look at the YouTube chapters. You have to ask, what is an API request, right? An API request is you're sending some sort of payload or request. So, blockchainapi.com. You want to get information about NFTs, so you make requests to our API endpoints, right? So if you want Solana NFT, create an NFT, you'll make a request to api.blockchain.com/v1/Solana NFT. And then every other company has APIs, whether it's public or private. So obviously ours is public because people pay for it. Snapchat's is probably mostly private. I haven't checked in, they have some part public. But if you go to api.snapchat.com, you'll see, so this is their API. They just send a not found. Most of the time, that's what you'll see. For us, we do just blockchainapi.com and stuff like that. Okay. So that's what an API is. So webhook is, an API is you send something and you get you return information, right? So basically, it's mostly an API. In an API request, the data flows out, okay, from the API. So we're giving you some information about whatever it is you're requesting, right? So like the Twitter API, you might want to know what are the tweets for this person. You'll get the information. A webhook is data in. You're receiving data, okay? So like in our case, we don't really care what you respond to with. We're just giving you the information of the payment that the user made. So that's what a webhook is, okay? And so you basically have to make an API endpoint similar to api.blockchainapi.com, whatever, Solana NFT, on your server, just for the webhook. And then you set it in the project. Okay, so first things first, let's just set up our API, and we'll host it on localhost. We'll use Ngrok to create a publicly accessible URL to the localhost. And then we'll show you how to accept the incoming information. Okay, so first is I have this cheat sheets because I don't want to live code. I don't want to think too hard. I'd rather just copy and paste. So first is we're just going to use Flask and Python. So generally first let's just let's install all of the required packages. So first, if you open up PyCharm, also this GitHub repo, this stuff is going to be on GitHub. So first, if you're on PyCharm, you have to configure the Python interpreter. So go to interpreter settings. I want to add a new one. Then click OK. Now you want to install all of the packages. So go to interpreter settings and start adding them. So let's go Flask. Boom. Yeah, and then let's go Flask cores or Flask cores. Yeah. Boom. Flask RESTful. Boom. All right. Okay, and then let's see what else is required. Okay, and we have to do requests as well. request actually comes with, oh no, it doesn't. You have to install it. Okay. See, version 2.28.0. Okay, so just, what you really need to do is you also need to put it in your requirements. So let's go ahead and add the packages that we just did. Flask is 212, as always. Oh my god, I messed up. Flask cores 3010. Okay. Flask RESTful 39. And then should be it. Okay. So now that we have that, everything should be done and in our code. So now let's go back to main. Let's just rename it to application, because typically when you're creating a Flask app, you name it app.py or application.py. Okay, so cheat sheet app. So if you see here, let's just get, let me just copy and paste, this part, so I can just show you. Okay, so if you see here, there's setup Flask and API. So there's, these settings which I have, you can basically ignore them. You don't have to include them. Core so that anybody can authorize it or that sort of thing. And then the API. API is a package from Flask RESTful. And what that does is it basically allows you to add these resources in a really easy way. So typically, when you're creating a Flask app, you sort of have to add them like this, like create like a little function here and do this, and it's all in one file and it's really messy. Versus with this, I'll show you how to use this. So anyways, now let's set it all up. So we can just make sure, first let's just get it running, okay? So I'll just do two things here. First is, hold on, I need to copy and paste main. I actually have to run the application. Okay, so now we have all of our code, which all this does is it sets up the API, and and I'm gonna comment this out because we don't need this yet. All it does is actually just sets up the Flask app, and it returns welcome to my app for the home page. Okay, so run it, and you can view it on here, and it says welcome to my app. Okay, pretty simple. Now let's use Ngrok. Ngrok is just an incredible, I love it. Okay, go to ngrok.com, do whatever you need to do. It's free to use it. And what you do is you go Ngrok HTTP, the port, right, which is 8080. Okay. And what Ngrok does is you have this local port, right, and this IP address. I guess anybody can access this IP address, but anyways, it just makes it really easy, and it gives you HTTPS, which some cases you might not, you might need, and you won't have with your regular port. So now let's actually add the class. So go here, and what this is okay. So we have like the home page or whatever, right? Just just to make sure it's working. Now we need the webhook to be able to accept incoming information. So this is where I'm going to go to the cheat sheet. Also, let me delete this. It's kind of annoying. Let me go to the cheat sheet here. And this is like for the webhook. Okay, so let me go into here and we'll go new webhook. We'll just go webhook.py and let's create a folder called called endpoints, right? And this will have all of your endpoints for your server and API and everything. Okay, and so let's see. Okay, this looks pretty good. Okay, So let me just go over how this works. We import shit we need. Check. Then we have class Webhook. And as I mentioned before, there are 2 steps. Okay, there's verifying the webhook request came from us. Okay, and then there is, and then there's actually reading the payload and updating your backend. Okay, so let's do the first part, which is validating that the request came from us. How do you do that? We send a signature. We sign the payload. We sign, with our own key. You don't even know what our public key is. And all you do is you submit that signature to us through our endpoint, okay? And we'll tell you, did we do this or not? And did we send you this request or not? So you don't even need special, libraries to like decode the public key, like cryptography libraries or whatever. You don't have to worry about that. You just make a simple request. In this verify webhook request, you put in the signature, the webhook ID, the time sent. This is everything you receive, and then you send it back to us to this validate URL, and then if it's not a 200 response, you return an error, okay, and then you just return that as a response, right? That's what this function returns. Okay, so really, once you copy and paste this, again, this is on GitHub, the only thing you need to do is add your API keys, okay? And just before we add the API keys, just one more thing is I wanted to show you that the documentation for this validate endpoint that we're using is available over here. Validate a webhook, okay? So you have everything you need. All right. So now we need API keys, so just create an API key pair. Okay, and done, and let's go back over here. Okay, I'm gonna leave this like little to do so that I don't. Anyways, so now we have an API key pair. Now we can verify the webhook request. Okay, so like literally the first lines are, we get the data, request.json. Okay, so sorry, let me explain something, just so you have a background of how this works. This class webhook, we're gonna add over here, okay? And when there's a post request to webhook, this is the first line that runs. Assuming you don't have other like custom settings, but this is the first line that runs. Okay, so I'll just show you, go to from endpoints.webhook import webhook, and that's our endpoint class. In our path, we can just call, v1 webhook or whatever. How about crypto payments v1 webhook? Okay. And we're going to test this path. So let me just show you. There's post requests and get requests, right? Def get return correct path. Okay. So what you do is we're just going to make sure that this is the correct path. So if you go here, let's rerun the application. Go back to our Ngrok. We refresh. Okay, now let's put in the path. Correct path. Okay? So in the browser, when you load a resource that you visually see in your browser, it always uses first a get request to get the information. Then there might be other post requests or whatever. So anyways, go back to webhook. We know for sure that this is the correct path now. Now, we already have this verify code. And then all of the request data is in this JSON. So we go request data and we read it. We see when does a period start? When does a period end? Which might not always be there. So, if period end in payment and payment period end, it's not none. Okay. We can read it. Okay, so then we can let's just go ahead and do JSON dumps payment indent 4. And we'll go here and we'll go updating database. Okay, and this is where you go and update all the information that you just received after a successful payment. All right, so now let's refresh this. And we go back over here, okay? And this is our webhook. So now it's pretty simple. You know, in the previous tutorial, we already set up the project. We go here, we click edit the webhook, we save it, and now we have this as our webhook for the project. Then we go back to CryptoCheckout and let's make another payment. Okay, so let's connect. We'll pay. Okay, we have to enter in a Discord ID. You know, so that's, I explained this in the previous tutorial. You don't always have to accept that. You can accept any type of ID. Okay, so I can say, you know, it's Josh Wolf, blah, blah, blah. Pay now. Approve. The sign message. Okay, now approve the payment. All right, and so once this is done, this is going to ping our server with the proper information to validate the payment. I mean, the proper information to update our database, telling us we just received a payment. So they can leave the, they need to leave the window open, but they can go ahead and go, you know, like over here or something or wherever. It just needs time to actually confirm that the payment was successfully processed. Now it's finishing up, and we're redirected to here, which means we got the webhook. Look at that. Okay, so we received it, and it crashed. Why? Because I indexed into here, and I shouldn't have. This doesn't exist. This key does not exist. Okay, so my bad. Let's just go ahead and redo it. Everything else existed. But let me just show you. It crashed, right? We did receive it, which is great. If we go to webhooks, we can now see 500, okay? 500 means internal error because our server crashed, right? So then we can debug it, you know, based on everything that we see here. So, you know, it says, it should say here, it should also say like what your server response was and other things like that, but for some reason it doesn't, but it will. But it, you know, it says a response code here. So let's try it again, and let's, you know, we commented this out so it won't have the index error again. Let's refresh, and let's try again. Okay. See, the great thing is there are no fees. So even though we're testing this on mainnet, right? You know, blockchain API doesn't take any fees, so you receive the full 9 cents. And the only like transaction fee on Solana, I mean, it's less than a penny. So even though we're doing this on mainnet and we're testing, it doesn't even, you know, it doesn't cost us anything basically. So I'm finishing up. Here we go. And it should send the webhook here. Boom, we got it. We literally just got it as we're looking, which is cool. And it printed the payment. And this is everything we received. Remember, I put in 1. So you would get the customer ID, and you can, you know, then update your backend, or you can read the payment information. Okay, which plan did they use, right? Which product did they use? Stuff like that. So, yeah, that's everything. And then you can give them, you know, period start, period end, everything you need. Update your database, give them access. If you go back here, you'll see the payments made, right? These were ones we did. This is the first tutorial. This is this tutorial. And you go back here in webhooks, and you'll see 200 and everything that you need to know about this webhook. That's how you set up the webhook to accept payments. Yeah, I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you try it out, I'd love to hear about it and help you and make sure it works. Thanks so much. Have a great day.